It's really good.
Your thing is good, Melly?
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah, I have to. No, I already know what I want.
There we go. Oh my goodness. What is happening today? How's everybody doing? Ugh, don't look at this mop. I hope everyone is well on this Friday afternoon. Um, and I don't know if you noticed that I posted some links to Monroe County Mental Health Association. And I just want to say, some of us are going through some really rough stuff right now, and particularly the younger people. So I just want you to know that 211 is there, and that's the PIC person in crisis unit for the county, not 911, but 211. If you have an immediate crisis, otherwise, there are some links to help. Mental health is as important as taking care of your heart or your lungs or the rest of your body. And mental illness is real. Uh, I just want you to know that help is out there. And if you're not sure where to go, you can reach out to me or anyone else here in our department. But I want you to know that help is there if you need it. So let's get started today. It's every now and then I try to tuck in recent news events. So, what I did want to talk about, and you may have heard a little bit about this last week, was Tulsa's Black Wall Street Massacre, in which an entire town was destroyed. Um, a town where Black people in the early 1900s had come to prosper quite well. And the entire town was massacred, and our federal government had a hand in it, even um, dropping kerosene like bombs on the town. It was all burned to the ground. Um, about 20,000 people lost their homes, and I think 1,000 people died. But we'll take a quick look at it because it's history. And the thing about history, there's a saying, those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. So we want to acknowledge those that were lost and continue the fight for everyone to truly be free in this country. So I'm going to first pull up. This is from the New York Times. Hold on, let's share it. Okay, let's go to this. And what it shows you, it's kind of an interactive little thing here. So, a century ago, a prosperous black town in Tulsa, Oklahoma, perished at the hands of a violent white mob. So, we're going to take a look at this. This is the town after. If you can look as far as the eye can see, there's nothing there. You know. And so, this is what was destroyed. So the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 killed hundreds of residents, burned more than 1,250 homes, and erased years of Black success. We're going to walk down the street. I believe this was Greenwood. This is the town of Greenwood Street. So if you look here, what the Tulsa Race Massacre destroyed. Here. So imagine a community of great possibilities and prosperity built by Black people for Black people. This was during the early 1900s. Segregation and Jim Crow laws were in place, meaning things were separate and mostly unequal, but people had come to prosper here. There were places to work, places to live, places to learn and shop and play, places to worship, and now imagine it being ravaged by flames. In 1921, the Tulsa, Oklahoma neighborhood of Greenwood was a fully realized antidote to the racial oppression of the time. It was built in the early part of the century in a northern pocket of the city. It was a thriving community of commerce and family life to its roughly 10,000 students. Brick and wood homes dotted the landscape, along with blocks lined with grocery stores, hotels, nightclubs, billiard halls, theaters, and it was so promising and so alive that it became known as Black Wall Street. And what took years to build took 24 hours to erase it, and sending the dead into mass graves and forever altering family trees. Hundreds of the residents were brutally killed, their homes and businesses wiped out. There were casualties of a furious and heavily armed mob of looters and arsonists. And the story is that a young Black boy put his hands on a young white girl in an elevator. What we know now is they knew each other and they may have been a couple. So the financial toll in today dollars is 27 million. Back then it was 1.8 million dollars in 1921. And what the government, local government of Tulsa, and the state government wanted to do for the most part is to cover it up. So what we think about is with wealth, that for most people, wealth comes from generation to generation. And when you don't have that legacy of wealth to pass down to your children, it's harder to get a leg up. So what could these families been? What could this city have been if they were allowed to carry on the legacy? We'll never know. So they put together a 3D model. The They put together a 3D model. Where did my article go? Of the street. So these were mostly 1, 2, and 3-story red buildings, and all of them, except for a few, were owned by Black entrepreneurs. So we're taking a look. If you look here, stores, electricians, barbers, real estate, newspaper, insurance, beauty salons, school, physicians. If you notice, rooming house, restaurant. There were 4 hotels, 2 newspapers, 8 doctors, 7 barbers, 9 restaurants, and half a dozen professional offices of real estate agents, dentists, and lawyers, and a cabaret and a cigar shop around the block too. So people were doing pretty well. There's your Y. Oh no, that's your cleaners, billiard hall, pool hall, restaurants, cigar stores. You could shop for groceries, play pool, take in a theater show, eat dinner, or get your hairstyle without leaving this whole entire block. Everything that you needed. Cafe, another doctor shop, hotel. You could enjoy a full life there. The businesses were owned by people who were among the most prominent citizens. And that's Greenwood Avenue. And Lula and John Williams came to embody the entrepreneurial spirit. They had a confectionery, like an ice cream shop, and a garage. 1921, I'm going to tell you, in 1921, my family, they were poor in the South. They weren't living like this. Not at all. They sharecropped, shop for grocery. You could do anything that you needed along. So that's pretty much what was there. Let's read a little bit about the massacre, what it was, and what's coming. So this is a mural painted alongside the interstate, and the freeway cut the Greenwood district in two when it was built in the city. And that has happened in a lot of cities in America where they will build a freeway in poor neighborhoods and people will be isolated on one side from getting goods and services, like lack of, depending on where you live, lack of a grocery store. So that was done purposely. So let's look at this article real quick. The Black City Council member came to a dead end along a gravel road. Vanessa Hall Harper pointed to a grassy knoll in the Potter's Field of Oaklawn Cemetery. And Potter's Field is where they throw poor people. Sometimes you don't even have a marker. But this is where the mass graves are. She and others think bodies were dumped here after one of the worst episodes of racial violence in U.S. history, the 1921 race massacre. For decades, few talked about what happened in this city when a white mob descended on Greenwood Avenue, a black business district so prosperous it was dubbed the Negro Wall Street by Booker T. Washington. And so for 2 days, the mob set fire to businesses and homes. Um, More than 300 people killed, more than 10,000 left homeless, and 40 blocks left smoldering. Survivors recounted black bodies loaded on trains and dumped off bridges into the Arkansas River, and most frequently tossed into the mass graves. And so today, they are looking to find these graves so that these people can be honored. Now, as Tulsa prepares to commemorate the massacre centennial, 100 years, the community is still haunted by its history, as transformed by a wave of new development in and around Greenwood. So there's a minor league baseball stadium, plans for BMX motocross. There's an art district marketed to millennials, young white kids with disposable income, and a hip shopping complex constructed out of empty shipping containers. There's a high-end apartment complex with a yoga studio and pub. So who's living in a high-end apartment complex? So while almost two-thirds of the neighborhood's residents are African American, the gentrification has surfaced tensions between the present and the past, once again raising questions about the rampage. Even the description of the violence is a point of contention, with some calling it the Tulsa race riot and others referring to it as a massacre. Before my grandmother died, I asked her what happened, said Hall Hopper, whose council district includes Greenwood. She began to whisper. They was killing black people and running them out of the city. I didn't even know about the massacre until I was an adult. And I was raised here. It wasn't taught in the schools. It was taboo to talk about it. And so Tulsa officials decided not to excavate the site of the grave, arguing the evidence isn't strong enough. But Harper asked the city to reconsider. In honor, we should honor the people and make sure that these individuals are laid to rest correctly. So, 100 years ago, Tulsa was racially segregated and reeling from a recent lynching when Dick Rowland, a 19-year-old shoe shiner, walked into the Drexel building, which had the only toilet downtown available to Black people. Rowland stepped into the elevator. Sarah Page, a white elevator operator, began to shriek. And it's uncertain about what happened inside the elevator. The most common explanation is that he stepped on her foot as he entered, causing her to scream. As I said, I heard that the two of them knew each other and there was a relationship there. Who knows? So, what happened after that is that the newspaper published a story with the headline, Nab Negro for Attacking Girl in Elevator, and ran an ominous editorial to lynch a Negro tonight. And then a white mob gathered outside the courthouse where Rowland was taken after his arrest. And then some Black men, including World War I veterans, made a circle around him to protect him. And a struggle happened and a shot was fired. And then hundreds of white people marched on Greenwood in a murderous rage. And they tried to kill everyone they could see, said a survivor in the 1999 documentary, The Night Tulsa Burned. There were reports that white men flew planes, dropping kerosene bombs. Tulsa was the first city in the United States to be bombed from the air from the government to American citizens. B.C. Greenwood, B.C. Franklin, a lawyer and father of famed historian John Hope Franklin, wrote a rare firsthand account. He said that the city was literally covered with burning turpentine balls. And then on June 9th of 1921, martial law was declared and troops rounded up Black men, women, and children and detained them for days. Olivia Hooker, now 103, one of the last survivors, was 6 when the violence erupted. Her mother hid her and 3 of her siblings under their dining table, and she said, "Keep quiet and they won't know you're under here." They took everything that was valuable. They smashed everything they couldn't take. My mother had these Enrico Caruso records. They smashed the records. Hooker later, who became one of the first Black women to join the Coast Guard, has always lived with her memories. You don't forget something like that. It was a trauma to find out people hated you for your color. It took me a long time to get over my nightmares. And then 77 years later, the authorities began investigating the claims of mass graves. They used electromagnetic induction and a ground penetrating radar to search for evidence um, at two cemeteries. They found anomalies, something odd, which merited additional investigation. Then in 1999, a white man named Clyde Eddy, who was 10 at the time of the massacre, came forward and told officials he was playing in the cemetery when he spotted men digging a trench. When the men left, he looked inside the wooden crates and saw corpses of Black people. So they now started looking in that cemetery that Eddy cited, and this was led by Clyde Snow, an anthropologist who helped identify Nazi war criminals and determined that more than 200 victims found in a mass grave in Yugoslavia had been killed in an execution style ethnic cleansing. So they used ground penetrating radar and found characteristics of a deep trench. And they're still investigating. Well, they were going to investigate, um, but they did not follow up on that. So we're still trying, they are still trying to get this done. Um, they're saying they couldn't pinpoint anything, so they decided not to dig further. But people are worried that redevelopment in that area, they will just build on these so-called sites of cemeteries. And so people now are just learning, even that live in this town. I basically summarized the rest of this article for you. You can read it with Read Aloud if you'd like, and to complete it. And what I would like for you to do um, is answer this question. Make and support a claim about why someone would read this test or why they should, and what will a reader gain or do after reading this, and support your response with specific details from the text. So we have a reading assignment enclosed in a social studies assignment. And turn that in. Let me see your writing. We've been talking about supporting a claim in writing class. Let me hear from you. That's all we have for today. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care of yourself. Love on yourself.